Welcome, friends. Thank you all so much for joining Collective Conversations. We are back for in celebration and in honor of Global Black Philanthropy Month. I love that so much. Yes. And so hopefully everybody is taking good care of themselves and we are in conversation and community together as we're celebrating Global Black Philanthropy Month and in the spirit of this year's theme, which is Black Love in Action. I love that theme so very much, y'all. But before we jump into our conversation, let me just, for those of you who are fairly new to Collective Conversations, we welcome you this time and in every month to join us for this live conversation where we bring advocates and leaders in the collective giving movement together for us to just talk about clearly Black Philanthropy Month, timely topics and subjects, and just uplift the voices of folks that you need to know about. And so I am very honored to be the curator and the facilitator of this monthly conversation. My name is Taisha Ty Wilson. Should have started off with that. And I serve as the Director of Engagement here at Philanthropy Together. All right. So now that we got that out the way, August, y'all, Black August, as we say. Every single month, every August, we celebrate Black Philanthropy Month. And it is a global celebration and a concerted campaign that was created by Dr. Jacqueline Copeland. And so flowers to her. And it centers on basically elevating African descendant, are giving Black Americans all across the world are giving, and also to advocate for more funding equity. And so, inspired by the times and the late scholar activist Bell Hooks, I literally have her book right here, and I was just talking to the panelists. If you have not read it, it is a gem. So inspired by her writings on love as a necessary foundation for true social change, that's what this year's theme, Black Love in Action, is centered on. And so we really are going to take it back to the root meaning of philanthropy as love for all of all humanity, and that includes Black people, y'all. And so we're going to be talking about all of that, Black love, self-love, and in joining me and in celebration of the month, I have three dynamic friends of mine and trailblazers and people of the movement. Mark Greer, who is the co-executive director at Transforming Power Fund. Say what's up, Mark.
What up, though? From Detroit.
Dr. Starita Ansari, who is the founder of the new 3Rs and an activist and mama of the movement to all of us, just all things bad mama drama. Go ahead and say hello, Dr. Starita.
Power to the people.
Yes. And then I have my heritage sister, y'all. We have two heritage sisters, Heritage Giving Fund. She's Dr. Halima Leek Francis is the one of the co-founders for Heritage Giving Fund based out of Dallas, Texas. She also is the founding director and professor of practice at Tulane SOPA. And also, yes, I told y'all, the founding co-chair of Heritage. Welcome, Dr. Halima.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And it's a wonderful joy to be with you all today.
I love that. Okay, y'all. So this conversation we're going to speak a lot of truth to power. And I'm going to hopefully be able to keep up. Might as well get your notes together because I know that our panelists are going to share their own personal testimonies. We'll discover a lot of bit about what they're doing in the space of Black innovation and what they're doing to promote and to love on our communities. And then, y'all, we're just going to really uplift the narratives, some of the narratives about Black philanthropy that need to be, that we need to center on. And so, as we all know, I do want to just share this before we get our conversation started, is that right now, Black communities all across the globe, y'all, we are being attacked, okay, by a lot of injustices. We literally see it. Right here in the US alone, we're faced with the undoing of 45-year legal protection with the recent Supreme Court decision that rejected affirmative action at colleges and universities. That's why I have Dr. Halima here. She's going to talk a little bit about that. We're in the consideration of race to increase diversity on campuses. There's book bans that's going on, right? Eliminating our storytelling, our literature, our theories, addressing race and racism. We have just globally, right? We're just across. There's some immigration reform. There's y'all. It's a lot of stuff going on in Black communities and across the world, y'all. We need more people to love on Black communities in such a way where we can all be free and our collective liberation is at hand. So I say that as an anchoring message for our conversation today, because we all need to lean into the spirit of what Black love in action really means in real life for our communities today, tomorrow, and forever. And with that, I want to start with you, Dr. Halima. If you could just introduce yourself, which we already know who you are, but tell us a little bit about your organization and what you're doing in your work, and then more importantly, how you even got involved with philanthropy. What's your origin story?
Yes, thank you so much. And as you were talking, I had to lean back and get my pen, and I have my bell hooks mug here. Thank you with my tea. So I'm anchored and ready for this conversation. So thank you so much. So I, as you shared, I'm Dr. Malik Francis, and I currently serve as the founding program director and professor of practice for the John Lewis Public Administration program at the Tulane School of Professional Advancement. We were named in honor of Congressman Lewis in October, this past October of 2022. And I think that that is an important element of this conversation, because a key part of the dialogue around philanthropy, um, and particularly for the Black community, involves recognition and acknowledgement, and also the intersections of policy that you mentioned in our opening. I came to this work. I've worked in the sector at the cross section of fundraising, philanthropy, nonprofit leadership, higher ed administration, and leadership for a little over 20 years at this point. And honestly, my exposure to philanthropy was deeply personal. It was from back when I was a child, and in early practices in my family, volunteerism, being a part of service organizations. I'm a member of a Black Greek letter organization, sorority, and also attended a historically Black college, Hampton University. So just found fundamentally philanthropy and service and community uplift has been a part of who I am, and integral to my identity alongside my professional work. I remember one of the turning points I remember that played a role in shaping my approach to philanthropy and a lot of my ideology around philanthropy. So I see philanthropy not only as the right thing to do and a demonstration of love for all mankind, but similar to Bell Hooks, there is a justice component to this conversation, and I truly see philanthropy as a vehicle of justice. That viewpoint I can remember being crystallized in an early career experience I had, where I was working with an alum who had recently named a building. And he shared with me, he was a Jewish gentleman, he shared with me that early in his life, he remembered colleges and universities having quotas for Jewish enrollment. So they were not enrolling students, more than one or two, perhaps three Jewish students at certain colleges and universities. And I said, why is this so important to you? Why is it important also that you be recognized for your giving in this particular way? And he said, I grew up in this era, and I saw the challenges and the trauma that my people have experienced. And it's harder, it will be harder for them to say to those who come behind me with a name that's similar to mine, with a culture that's similar to mine, with an identity that's similar to mine. It's harder to close that door. It's harder to to take away that access if my name is on the building.
Mm-hmm.
So that stuck with me.
Wow.
That stuck with me, and there are many, many, many more stories that we see in the Black community. We see Pearl C. Anderson, who was a foremother of philanthropy in the Dallas
Yep.
community, and one of the leaders that the Heritage Giving Fund anchors its work in. We see those who've given in the New Orleans area. This is a city of Black culture, rich in heritage. But if you go around New Orleans, if you talk to the families, you see generations of folk who gave and contributed in building the character of this city. So Black philanthropy for me has been integral to all levels of my life. And so it's only natural and it's only right that it's a part of my service agenda as well. So that is my origin story, if you will, of philanthropy. I'm sure we'll get into much more, but that's a key part of where it starts.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Clement. It's always a beautiful thing when I feel like this is your calling or what you're doing. When I hear your origin story and where you at right now, when you talk about purpose and full alignment of your values and what we're doing right now, that makes it even more real because it's not what you're called to do and what you're actually doing. So I really appreciate your story. Thank you. Mark, what about you?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lima, for sharing your story. Hey, Soror, 580 Sigma, Attorney
Hey.
Incorporated. Brother John Lewis was actually one of my inspirations for joining the fraternity. But my name is Mark Greer. I'm a native Detroiter. I'm co-executive director of the Transforming Power Fund, which is a social justice fund based in Detroit. We use community-led grant making to fund community organizing. I actually started out, I would say, I started out in philanthropy, I guess, at an early age. I didn't realize volunteering, was a part of, giving back until, later, in life, as we kind of think about now. But I started out my professional career in philanthropy really as an organizer, community organizer, first focused in Detroit around economic justice, public safety, faith-based organizing. Did that work for a few years and honestly got burnt out. Like, if you think about, my hometown, there's so many issues that require systems change, but just really felt like we didn't have the funding to do it. And so I was going back to grad school. I had a mentor. I was going to do public policy or social work, and a mentor said, "You already know that stuff. Understand, get an MBA, understand the business aspect of it, and you can bring together the political, social, and now the economic." And I struggled through like finance and accounting. The management classes I got, but finance and accounting really got me. But during the MBA, I actually got a chance to have an internship with JP Morgan Chase and their foundation and their commitment to Detroit. And the person who was over the Detroit portfolio is still a mentor of mine. Just really, Black woman, just really cared about the city. And it's like, hey, this is a way that we can give back to our community strategically and use the bank's money to do it, right? And so like that was just a really powerful lesson for me. Ended up working after that internship, going to the Kresge Foundation for a few years, in the grants management side, understand the ins and outs of philanthropy, the history, the traditions, and ways that it can be improved. Went to a corporate foundation with PwC, and this is during the calls for racial justice after the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and seeing companies make commitments to racial equity, racial justice. I think was a really powerful moment, and also working kind of in that belly of the beast, realizing that a lot of companies made the statements and didn't really follow up on the actual giving, didn't follow up on the internal systems change that their employees were even calling for. And so, the role with Transformer Power Fund came up. I wasn't necessarily looking to leave, but it was an opportunity for me to, one, be focused, hyper focused on, my hometown, Detroit. We also fund in Hamtramck and Highland Park, which are smaller sub-cities within Detroit that have demographics that are often overlooked as well. Uh, Folks on Detroit focus on grassroots community organizing, which I left because we didn't have the funding, right? And so it was just a real full circle moment for me. I believe that philanthropy is local and global, and like the two aren't separate. And so being able to do the work that I do, be connected to great folks like y'all, and like really think about this movement of Black philanthropy is really personal to me. It's really powerful. I grew up as a beneficiary, of philanthropy, and also had to shift my mindset. I too am a philanthropist, with the time, talent, and recently treasure, being in a position to give back, financially is something that, is still something that is growing in me, and then helping others do the same through Transformer Power Fund, and otherwise.
Mark, I too have been like many of us, our audience and the panelists have been beneficiaries of philanthropy. And so I'm glad even that you brought that piece up, because a lot of us, now that we're on the other side, the sourcing side, the side where we can now be thought partners and change, disrupt the systems on the back end with that lived experience in mind, is just so important. So I'm so glad you're seated at Transforming Power Fund, and all those and the positions and experience that you're bringing to this space, because that systems change piece that your organization is working on is so important. It's the systems, honey, that's at play now that we got to get to. Dr. Starita, talking about systems, you also, you, ma'am. Well, please share your origin story and all the things in between. You have done such amazing work systemically, globally, internationally, all the things.
Thank you. How I got involved in philanthropy is that my family always practiced responsive philanthropy. I was raised to invest time, talent, treasures, and testimony to improve Black lives. I grew up with, at the dining room table, there were Muslims, there was Jews, there was Asians, and they were playing, I thought they were just there playing cards. Didn't realize that they were doing community work. They were doing social justice work. And I was always being sent in the back. My mother's making daiquiris, everybody's having fun. And that's the truth. And so I grew up understanding that judge someone by their heart. Don't judge them by the color of their skin or how they worship God. And so that's, so that's my core value in this work. And that's one of the reasons why when we did the beta with the new 3Rs, we had Asians, we had Blacks, Latinx, Muslims, Jews, Sikh, because those are, for me, at the end of the day, we all must come together to make this nation the more perfect union that President Obama mentioned. And my grandmother loved Malcolm X, was picketing the hospitals, Kings County Hospital, I'm from Brooklyn, for its inequities. My grandfather was on a planning committee for Paragon. Paragon was the first Black credit union, making certain that Black folks invested their money in a Black institution and gave back to one another. So after I've completed my education, my mother said that I need to join the school board. And like, she didn't say it in a tone of think about it. She meant like, you join the school board. And I'm saying to myself, I don't have children. I don't want to do this. But I started going to the meetings and listening to how decisions are made about our communities and how important that is for us to be active and involved. And you get a chance to see upfront true systemic racism. Who gets funding, who doesn't get funding, how they stop our children from reaching their fullest potential as early as pre-K because of lack of funding or inequitable funding, which is always the case. And that, and that is part of the foundation of the work of the new 3Rs, in terms of educating everyone about how great we are. Our historian, Danny Gore, and I use the word griot because we don't teach Black history per se to pass a test, but we do it through storytelling. He has 10,000 Black history artifacts. That's the foundation of our work. And we do it through storytelling. We're the families, and we're a family program. So a child cannot appear without an elder, because you need to have the conversations in your homes after this. And so me having those values of always trying to figure out the systems of oppression. I went to an event at Lincoln Center, all the Shishi Fufu people were there, and I had a Shishi Fufu job, so I had a Shishi Fufu seat. The Shishi Fufu seat was next to Barbara Bush. And at that point, I was traveling across the United States. I've seen some very, very painful things. I met many times, more times than I want to count, with the Crips and the Bloods. I've been in and out of prisons across the United States, in and out of, detention centers for women. And at the end of the day, the gangs, they look like me. The people in prisons look like me. So I was at this event and I was sitting next to Barbara Bush, and I just started, she asked me what I was doing, and I told her what I did. And she gave me a phone number. And she said, I want you to call this person and tell her what you're doing. And I said, okay. And I did. And the woman gave us a $2.5 million gift for me to teach people incarcerated that no matter what you have done in life, you're great, you're beautiful, Allah loves you, God loves you. That program exists today. 20 years later, that program still exists in the prison system, teaching incarcerated people how to read so they get up to a grade level so where they can get a job. So I share that story with you for you to understand that the work that I do with the new 3Rs, and what it stands for, the 3Rs, is through the art of social justice storytelling, we build relationships and a sense of responsibility. Relationships and a sense of responsibility. That needs to be at the heart of everything we do in this sector. And that's why I believe in responsive philanthropy. Not philanthropy, but responsive philanthropy, which is responding to the needs of the least of these. And unfortunately, it's Indigenous people and Black people. Yeah. So that's my story. We've gotten recognition from NASDAQ and a few other entities. We're a young organization. It's an innovation. People struggle with teaching Black history. Folks struggle with us giving grants to Black organizations. And our curriculum also is critical race theory. And that's how our students understand racism is systemic. And we will be showing their work the end of this month, Your Story, Our Story blog, where we have children who are from 6th to 10th grade writing about how racism shows up in the water system, how racism shows up in the food system, how racism shows up with Black women have more education than any demographic, but they're the first to be fired and they earn the least. There's nothing wrong helping children understand the systems of oppression, particularly since the Civil Rights Act was designed to bring about equity, and it hasn't brought that about. So we need to figure out why it hasn't and have the conversation about it. And that's the work of the new 3Rs, helping children understand that, yeah, we have the Civil Rights Act, and we once had affirmative action. How come things are not that perfect union that President Barack Obama envisions for us? And how can we make it better by supporting Black-founded organizations?
Dr. Starita, the 3Rs, the relationship, responsibility, and that storytelling piece that you're talking about is so important for the education, the broader education of not just our children, but the world, to better understand the experiences, the inequities, the issues, all of that Black communities are dealing with. And I think that as we're talking about Halima, it really is making me think about even what you, because we just went from where you at, Starita, Detroit, where Mark, where you at, all the way back to New Orleans. You recently did a big proclamation, how you got the city of New Orleans to recognize, even just recognizing something like Black Philanthropy Month. That's a huge, when we talk about systemic education, that storytelling, the why, right? Other people need to understand why we celebrate, why we honor, why we're doing all the things, Black love in action. How I want to share, I think it's so inspiring to hear that is an actionable step of how you were able to secure that proclamation from the city of New Orleans to recognize Black Philanthropy Month. Why? Tell us a little bit about that, and then why was that important? Why? What's the significance around that?
Yeah, so we it was really critical. I think it is critical for local communities to recognize the contributions of their people. So at the point in time where we were, where I was striving to get the proclamation from the city, it was a couple years ago, actually, back when Hurricane Ida was en route to New Orleans, and New Orleans is no stranger to hurricane events and natural disaster and the impacts of all of those things. So I think it is really it's ironic that this proclamation was secured in that environment and in the midst of all of those challenges. Um, but in securing that proclamation, true to form, true to what Black philanthropy and Black philanthropic traditions are about, it was a community effort. So, working with the women from Heritage Giving Circle, Akila Wallace, Kimberly O'Neill, working with partners here in the city of New Orleans. So, a gentleman by the name of Jarvis Lewis, who's a community leader here, was a resource in gaining access to the mayor's office to get this recognition through. So alongside that, the work of my program, the John Lewis Public Administration program, teaching students about how to navigate the intersections of government, philanthropy, nonprofits, private sector, and all of those different elements for the public good. So the convergence of that moment in time was really important to me. Um, I have been personally recognizing Black Philanthropy Month for quite some time. So when I went to the webpage where they listed all the cities, I saw New Orleans wasn't there, and I was like, "What? Why isn't New Orleans represented there? We have to do this. We have to move this forward." So it was a priority for me, and I reached out and went through that process, and literally, as Ida was happening, I wasn't able to pick it up because we were in the process of evacuating, actually. So I had to wait some time to go secure the proclamation. And if you see the document in my office, there's like watermarks and all kinds of things that happened to it in that process. Um, so when I look at that piece, it tells a story, and I'm so grateful to Dr. Sarita to talking about the storytelling of this work. Um, you know, One of the things that motivates me is our stories, and when we talk about philanthropy in particular, our stories are lost. Our stories are, quite frankly, erased. So being able to have this document that formally recognizes the global movement of Black philanthropy, the historical contributions of Black philanthropy, how deeply embedded Black philanthropy is in the very identity and the fabric of our cities, is deeply important for that acknowledgement, just as the conversations around monuments is these documents, these proclamations, these government acknowledgments that this is a thing, is really critical to letting people know that we have been doing this work, and this work is a part of our culture, and it's a part of our history, and a part of our legacy. When I think about the proclamation itself, I'd love to see the proclamation similar throughout every city in the state of Louisiana, throughout every city in the Gulf South, throughout every city that has been touched by the inequities and the injustices that we fight against. So that's a personal dream and a goal of mine, to see that when we go back to the Black Philanthropy Month list in the coming years. So everyone who's present in these cities, reach out to your mayor's office, reach out to your governor's office, and work to secure these proclamations, because that offers an opportunity, that offers a platform, not only for the Black community to have a dialogue about philanthropy, but also Black-led organizations to be able to access resources. So these proclamations and this conversation around Black philanthropy also opens up the opportunity for organizations that are doing work that is serving the Black community, Black and brown communities, indigenous communities, to access those resources and get more visibility. So there's a connection point there, when we think about this level of recognition and these proclamations that happen. So those were the reasons why it was so important to me. And I hope that we will see more proclamations move forward as we continue to celebrate Black Philanthropy Month.
You know, making it personal combined with the actionable steps like how you did with making those proclamations happen is so important, because like you said, Dr. Halima, our stories, the narratives around Black philanthropy are, and the messages for far too long, it has, Black philanthropy has been untold and just quite frankly, just misunderstood. However, Black people, we have always been leaders in charitable giving, through actions, through beyond the dollar that exists. So your actions, taking our advocacy, creating those ties. We talk about these 5 T's so much. Ties is a huge piece of that. Relationships and those connections that you were able to leverage to make that proclamation happen. And so flowers to you all for, and everyone else that's around the US and around the areas that's lifting up those stories and proclamation, because it all matters in terms of the narratives around our philanthropy. Mark, this puts me in mind also, as we're talking about narratives, y'all, I personally, and I know y'all probably agree, these harmful narratives around Black philanthropy, like how Black people don't give, that we don't have a legacy of giving, that we're not philanthropic, all of that, that is the reason why we're seeing the inequities that we're seeing as it relates to funding in philanthropy. If y'all don't know, of the $477 billion, y'all, that's allocated to charitable gifts every year, 8%, 8%, y'all, goes to communities of color. 8. And of that 8%, when you pull Black funding that's flowing to Black-led organizations, you're talking less than 2% of all funding. It is asinine. But Mark, your organization, Transforming Power Fund, I think that's why it's so important for organizations like yours that are being intentional even about how we're shifting and moving resources and funding. So I know that you all, your organization has a very holistic approach with funding, and y'all even have it very similar to Black Philanthropy Month. You know how they have the global funding principles. You all have 12 recommendations for funders in Detroit. Just want to give you the space to talk about a little bit more about your model, how you all are bridging and helping and getting funders to better understand why it's important for them to fund more equitably.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, so the 12 recommendations for Detroit funders was actually the start of Transforming Power Fund. It was a collaboration between Detroit People's Platform, Deep organization here in Detroit, an Allied Media Project, and that there was a deep community engagement process, just listening to a community, people who are directly impacted by the issues that we all know and are trying to solve for. And the community came back and said, "Hey, these are some recommendations. We'll narrow them down to 12 for you for simplicity. Things that we kind of take for granted now, like make sure foundations are providing general operating support, providing multi-year support, making sure that communities are at the table when you're deciding where funding goes, not just one RFP, but looking at your overall strategy being rooted in community needs, things like that." And frankly, at the time in 2015, the foundation community here was not really adopting those practices, right? It seemed so much of a stretch or so out there. And so the community came back in 2017 with another report that I can link in the chat later, that really lays out, here are the issues that we care about: economic justice, environmental justice and access, redefining public safety, make water affordability, you name it. And if you aren't going to fund these things from a systems change standpoint, we're just going to start our own fund. And so Transforming Power Fund, all the paperwork, everything with the IRS, right? We were established in 2019, formally. Our first set of grants were in October 2019, and then the pandemic hit, right? And so everything with that was responding to the public health crisis, but also making sure that we're using this crisis as a chance to really, like, let's redefine what systems should look like and hopefully come out of this thing better, right? And so since that time, we've granted about $1.9 million to grassroots organizations. Average grant size about $22,000. And these are organizations, again, who, we have some organizations, most of our organizations, we're the first set of funding that they receive.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does, one, we're exercising trust with our community. We're helping them build their capacity and introducing them to other funders and showing the other funders that, hey, they may be small, but this is the policy shifts that they've been moving, because they're closer to the ground. They're led by people who are directly impacted by these issues, and they're the experts. And I think the real piece that I value about our model is it's a community-led model. And so we have 7 people from the community. They're organizers, activists, parents, leaders in their community of organizations that are just their block, right? And they decide where the funding goes, and it's different than this kind of traditional hierarchical model where it's controlled by the endowment, controlled by the board. And we took that and flipped it on its head, where community is at the center of everything that we do through that community-led process.
So this very I wouldn't even say a new model, community-led philanthropy. Nothing about us without us, right?
Exactly.
Of how we're bringing the voices from the community into the funding decisions. Now we're talking about shifting some power.
Absolutely.
So, which is y'all, we talk about Black love in action. That's power, and the shifting of that and resources is very important. So just thinking about some of the things that Mark has shared. Mark, you said that y'all are redesigning the way that funding, how it's allocated, just the whole process around that, disrupting that flow. So in building on some of the things that Mark has shared, Dr. Halim and Dr. Starita, what do y'all think in other ways can philanthropy better expand the love to Black humanity, to be more equitable, not just with money or just, through community-led collaboratives or opportunities like what Mark shared, or other ways? What does that really look like for philanthropy to do better? Because they know they should be doing better. So what do y'all think?
I think there's 2 sides to that coin. One side is the empowerment side. For me, Black people need to define, what does Black love look like?
Okay.
That's important. It's important for 2 reasons. Once we understand what Black love looks like, then we will be investing in Black businesses. Black dentists, people who have an agenda for us, even though they may not be Black. One of the things that, I always have to collect myself because it's emotional. In one of our calls with the women in South Africa, what she said to me is that tell the Black children in the United States that they are not forgotten, because we still tell the stories of the elder that never returned. So for me, when we talk about Black love in action, it's about us loving ourselves, us building a global community of love. And we have to understand how powerful the United States is and how the United States controls the narrative. So when I think about Black love in action, it's speaking our truth. It's doing everything that has been said here. It's building community internally, for donating our time, talents, and treasures to make things work. Because I am not hopeful that the percentage of funders that are going to invest in us is going to increase. So that's why I'm not answering the second part of your question.
Right. Okay.
It is something that we must do. We must teach our children at a very early age to invest in themselves and invest in one another. And I feel that let me say this. If January 6th has not awakened everybody, regardless of their race, faith, or gender, then nothing will. And you can tell what's going on right now, that everyone has not opened their eyes. So that's where I think we need to be in terms of philanthropy. Teaching our children the truth, empowering them. We need to honor and recognize Fred Hampton, because there's a reason why he was assassinated. When you bringing together LGBT community, Mexicans, Muslims, Jews. But that's who we are as a people. We've always been like that. We've always given to others. And we always built community. And that's what we got to teach our babies. Stop going out there buying the next pair of sneakers. Invest in yourself and invest in your community. That's what we need. That's the next steps for me in terms of philanthropy.
That's real.
Because I am very leery. You look at corporations. Everyone was jumping up and down because they gave us so much money because they witnessed the lynching of George Floyd. What happened? What happened? It's not the same. Racism hasn't changed. The inequities in healthcare hasn't changed. The inequities in the workplace hasn't changed. Black farmers aren't getting what other farmers are getting.
That's the truth.
So for me, when we talk about philanthropy together, let's do it. Let's do it. Black August should be every month.
That part.
Yeah.
I 100,000% agree. Dr. Starita, I love that it starts with us. How philanthropy can do better is it's starting with us. Dr. Helene, I feel like you about to say something. What were you about to say?
Yeah, thank you
Man.
for that, the heart and the depth of what you're sharing. And I echo 110% all that's been said. I would add that um, opening doors to change the systemic issues. So getting more people at the table who are positioned, readied, and resourced to make a difference. So opening those pathways and those opportunities for us to be key decision makers
Mhm.
within these broken systems, or within these inequitable systems. I won't say broken, but inequitable systems. Um, when we start to see people who are doing the work, who look like us and who prioritize us, who are resourced. So the whole the the tendency, or the myth of having a nonprofit leader who's expected to lead an organization that's doing real change work and highly under resourced. So they have to wear not two or three hats, but they have to wear 50 hats,
Mhm.
and figure out how to put the hat together. That's
Right.
got to stop. That has got to stop.
It's
That's
real.
right. Mhm.
And one reason why I appreciate, Mark, the work that you've done with the 12 practices and calls to action, and Dr. Starita making sure that the stories and the narratives are acknowledged and told in a holistic way, in a truthful way, informing those of us who are making decisions, informing those who have proximity to power and access to those tools and resources, giving them that, making sure that we have that knowledge, that all of us have that knowledge, so that when we do the work, or when we make these declarations, or when we send out these statements of equity, we are uh, ready and resourced. I keep saying resourced because that's usually where the rubber hits the road, is that we have the best of intentions, but no one has the resources to move it forward, or true resources to move it forward in a sustainable way. So making sure that our leaders, that those who are making policy, those who are making these decisions of where assets are being distributed, they look like us and they prioritize us. So what that means is that organizations that are focused on training and preparing people to do the work are present, and they have the resources that are needed. It means that access needs to be increased for
That's right.
students to be able to go to colleges and universities, or whatever training platforms they need to
Sure.
engage. So I think, as we think about what's going to create deep, deep sustainable change, and what's going to allow us to see what Black love and action looks like in the philanthropic space, in order for that to be realized, we have to have some people sitting at the table who are empowered and resourced to make those decisions.
The sitting at the table, because I know we have about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure we have enough time to definitely end this conversation on hope and forwardness. But before our pivot, I had a couple of people that reached out and asked about this recent Supreme Court decision, Halima. You're talking about access, seat at the table. For some, folks are like, well, we had a justice that would had a seat at that table, but yet that ruling went backwards. That Supreme Court decision impedes colleges and universities from selecting their own student bodies and fully addressing systemic racial inequities that persist. And that ruling really threatens us, our communities, to return to a time when education and opportunities was a privilege, was for a privileged class. We're not trying to go backwards. We want to move forward. And it really makes me think and honor and appreciate your position, Dr. Halima, at Tulane.
Mhm.
You are the founding director of this amazing program. When I think about access, I'm like, yes, like I would pressure, I'm a mother of 5. I'm like, yes, I would want to send my babies knowing that they have you, sister, or at that seat and will have a say so around them having access to pursue higher education. So I 1000% agree with you about the access and us having a seat at the table. But for all of those who are educators, universities, and just mamas like me who are concerned on what this affirmative action is going to look like, what Halima are your thoughts about the recent affirmative action decision, and how are you responding to it at Tulane in your position? Like what does that look like, and what should we really be hopeful about in a moment where it really does feels shitty? Like I'm just gonna say it's crappy, it's ridiculous. I'm upset just talking about it, y'all. I'm sorry. My boss is on here, but whatever. Like I'm so annoyed with this decision. So yes. What are
Yeah,
your thoughts?
I appreciate. I felt the same frustration when I saw the decision. Um, However, I it took me. I revisited the work of Derek Bell in the piece he wrote, "Faces at the Bottom of the Well," where he talks about one of the allegories that he shared talked about. Um, the lesson I took from it was about how the ball kind of moves. So how the goalposts will move when change is happening and when there are shifts in society and there are when we're seeing progress. So I took comfort in knowing that unfortunately this is not a new conversation, um, but what does give me comfort is that we are equipped to continue to move forward in spite of. So regardless of the decision, yes, to acknowledge it is a decision that is going to have huge ramifications, negative impacts across the board. However, that does not dampen the spirit of activism and justice and pushing forward for what's right and what's equitable in moving our society forward. So to that, I have to say that at Tulane and for my program and my colleagues in this work at the university, we reaffirmed our commitment. I remember
Yes.
when the decision was announced, even the president of our university sent out communication saying, you know what, we've been committed to this work. As a university in the South, our history is as difficult as all the other histories. However, we have been doing work in anticipation of what this decision was going to be, and it reaffirms our commitment to our principles of equity and inclusion and justice and diversity. Um, what that means for my work and my program, shortly after, I think probably a couple months after we announced at my school, the School of Professional Advancement, that we have a partnership with Dillard University, one of the local historically Black colleges in the area, where students can have an accelerated pathway to graduate study. So it's an agreement program where undergraduate students at Dillard can do an accelerated master's. So it's effectively a 4+1. They complete their master's and their undergraduate degrees in 4 or 5 years with a tuition discount. Now, recognizing that the school is a historically Black college, is, it's obvious what the history of that institution is. So we partner intentionally with these institutions. We also have a minority serving institution scholarship that I worked not long after I got to Tulane to help establish for all students who are graduating from not only HBCUs but Hispanic serving institutions, tribal colleges, Asian Pacific. So all of those institutions that serve students who come from those communities, or that prioritize students that come from those communities, we are opening doors. We're opening pathways for them to have access to graduate level education at Tulane. Another thing that is really important with this is to recognize the intersectionalities as well. So, oftentimes when we talk about issues that largely affect minoritized communities, there's an intersection of that often deals with poverty, that often deals with education, that often deals with environmental justice, housing. So there are all of these things that play a role when you talk about systemic issues that create this honestly storm of injustice that we see perpetually. So I think opening the doors of access, recognizing that intersectionality, is another key piece of this. So what that means is that students who come from communities that have been under-resourced, students who come from communities that experience environmental injustices, students that come from communities that experience housing inequities, educational inequities. We have to drill down into those injustices to really identify folk who are most deeply being impacted, and we have to open up those pathways for them. So while the decision um, did directly attack access and equity for race-based access and equity, it to me is an opportunity for us to dig more deeply into a lot of the issues that we have been experiencing for generations, that have continued to put us in a bad place. So it was a hard day. It was I shared a lot of the frustration, but true to, I think, my spirit of not giving up on my people and not giving up on this work, I had to step back and retool. And that's just the reality of the work. We have been attacked in so many different ways: assassinations, policy. There have been so many things that have pushed us 3 steps and 10 steps backwards over the generations, and that is the time where I look to um, the ancestors who've done this work before me. So I walk in their steps, and I walk in there and following their path. So I have to look to that for strength. I have to look to that for encouragement, and I have to share that with my students who are prioritizing justice and equity.
That's so real. Like, Dr. Lehman, while we're all, it feels like those bullets, you being attacked, you shot up like left and right, but yet and still we're like literally putting bandages on one another, taking care of it and feeling, trying to heal, self-love on ourselves, to your point, Dr. Starita, and still move forward, because it has to. It literally has to. If not us, then who, right? If not us four and all of our other brothers and sisters that's working out here to advance equity, to have the most uncomfortable conversations, even when our voices are rattling, when we're tired, we have to, that push through mentality. It really is true. But I think it's a way for us to do it in a way where we don't harm ourselves. We can still take care of ourselves. And I truly, truly believe that collective action will help us all and liberate us all. But we all we all have a role to play in this movement. And with that, so I'm thinking, like, love for our communities, us, what we're doing right now, today. I think about my babies, the future, the tomorrow, the forevers, Dr. Starita, all the babies that you training through the new 3 R's, Mark, all of us, all. I'm thinking, what is y'all, what is one word? What's one word? One word that y'all would use to describe what that Black love in action will forever look like today, tomorrow, and forever, to really get our world, y'all, us, move us forward to that mountaintop place that MLK has dreamed about. We talked about, right? Like when I think about the most beautiful, compassionate, perfect world, right? What is one word that y'all would use to describe what that looks like? Black love in action today, tomorrow, and forever. Go ahead, Dr. Sarita.
Yeah, for me, it's not one word. It's a phrase.
Okay.
Black power. Because Black power is something that's global. What I think about that is in the work that we're doing with South Africa, designing a curriculum for them, and also looking at Ghana, hopefully designing a curriculum. So the sisters from Ghana told me that Black women in Ghana are bleaching their skin. So when they come to the US, they'll be accepted. We have to believe in Black power. We have to believe in our brilliance, our compassion. We have to believe in everything that we have gone through, and we're still here. And so what I'm learning is that the United States really has a global impact on perceptions that people have.
Totally.
Of what Black life costs or doesn't cost. People don't know all the things that we have given the world. And so for me, it's not one word. It's that whole phrase of Black power. You can use it in investment. You can use it in communities. You can use it in education. You can use it in philanthropy. Remember, the Black Panther Party, everybody was in there because everyone believed in Black power. It was funded, you think of the work of the NAACP and the Urban League, and you think of some of the funding of the Black Panther Party. Jewish people were supporting all those organizations.
Right.
Black power. So this work doesn't just have to be about us or for us. It's about everybody.
Totally agree. What you think, Mark? I love that Black power.
Yeah, I'm affirming Black power and sitting with that. I appreciate that, Dr. Sarita. I think the word that I would come up with is care. It's like we have to, take care of ourselves, our collective community. One of my favorite funds that we have within TPF is our Resting Power Fund. That we gave $5,000 to leaders in the organizations in Detroit to just take a minute, take a vacation, like do whatever you want with that money, because you're working on pandemic, you're working on the cause for racial justice. Like we had a leader who hadn't taken a break, a vacation in 20 years, right, and was able to just sit and like not worry about her bills for a minute, right, pay up whatever she did. Like I think that was very powerful, and then came back and hit the ground running and was doing amazing, powerful work in the city. And so like we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of the generation. And again, that multi-generational. I'm about to come up with more words. I'm gonna stop before I go on a tangent. But care.
I see so many funders, Mark, investing in sabbaticals. I see sometimes on, when I email people, they'll have messages saying, I'm out, like I'm off, I'm resting, I'm doing. And I love that for us. Like, I love that. I love that not just for our people, I love it for those in the movement for social good.
Absolutely.
That's working in the space. Because to your point, brother, Care is so important right now. Otherwise, if you don't care for yourself, you will die. And then what? Then who's not, right? So I love that y'all are being intentional about that investing, and I love that the broader movement is waking up to the importance of rest as retribution and reparations, and something that it's not optional, y'all, to
Absolutely.
take care of yourselves. I love that. Care, Black Power. Dr. Halima, what you sitting on?
So I dream a lot. I just spend a lot of time dreaming. And I don't have a word. I have phrases like everybody else.
Yes.
And I think it's powerful that we don't have one word to capture, because it, to me, that reflects a vision. And visions can be complicated. They can be multi-layered. They have lots of different elements to them. What I see in my vision are the connection of joyful creation and liberated imagination. That's my hope
Love that.
for all the work that we have done, all the work that we are doing. I want to see us get to a place where um, we are not fighting so much. We are not mired in fixing, but we are intentionally building and creating, with joy and with liberated hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits. That's what I want to see.
Mm.
Um, and I when I think about that, what encourages me, I think so funding the arts is really important to me, and I keep art around me to remind me and to keep me focused. And I think about two pieces. One is this photograph that was done by Michael Aboya. It's called Songs of Freedom. It's a group of young Black children. There's one in the center playing the violin. And it is a gorgeous piece. I think he's from Ghana, and it is a beautiful, freeing piece. There's another one that's on the Treehouse by John Biggers, and it's a metaphor for um, that's just a spectrum of human experience. So growing, loving humanity, inclusion, and it is ultimately representative of a very beautiful future that is informed by the experiences of the past. So I think that once we get to a place, or what I work towards in my teaching and my research and my practice and my work and my volunteerism and service, is that day where we can say that we are free to joyfully create and just dream and imagine from a space of liberation. So that's my vision for Black love and Black justice and joy and philanthropy.
Y'all words or phrases, so to speak, are so y'all. Like just listening to y'all talk, I'm like, that is hard work. That's straight from the heart to the dome out of your lips. And I appreciate y'all for sharing that for us, not just for us, but all humanity, because everybody can lean into those creative imagination, care, Black power. And I'm even sprinkle my one word. I have a one, it's cliche, y'all, but love. Even my shirt, I like to wear kind of how I feel and what I stand for. But I truly believe that love can combine with the chords of collective action, really can liberate all of us. And especially now, I think that love has often been overlooked as a driving force of change. But for Black communities around the world, we have shown that love has always been more than a sentiment. I grew up from a very impoverished area, but I always had an abundance of love. I never had a scarcity mindset, because love was at the center through my mom's cooking, was the way that the church ladies would give me the peppermint candy. They would, discipline me in love. Love is a very intentional and powerful force that can really fuel transformative action. And so with that, Black Philanthropy Month, y'all, really does, and it really does provide us with the opportunity to redefine, especially with this month's theme, love in action. And we are going to lean into it for the rest of the month. But the month really does give us the opportunity to redefine the role of love in philanthropy and in society as a whole. Love as a verb compels us to move beyond the sentiment, right? Because a lot of folks will use love as just a noun, but when used as a verb, it moves us into intentional action, and it can help us to address the wounds of the past, and then really work us towards a more liberated, to your point, Dr. Halima, a joyful, more liberated, collective liberation for all of us. And so I hope that this conversation, y'all, because all of it, even with this work, it starts with a conversation. And everyone to know me is to know that even is the reason why I created this space. I just want us to talk about it. Some of the stuff, we just got to get it off our hearts, off our domes. To your point about the creative imagination, Dr. Halima, the wonders that happen when we come in space, just creating a space for us to be together and just talk about it and freely think and ideate on this beautiful world that we're all working towards. And so I hope that all of the audience and you panelists, that y'all feel the love that's in the space and lean into Bell Hooks and her writings and her courage that she gives us about love being a way for us to make necessary changes. And so by acknowledging and nurturing Black love in action, y'all, we can empower all communities and transform philanthropy and pay for a more just and inclusive future. And we need others, not even want, we need everybody a part of this collective liberation. Everybody. To your Dr. Starita, you've been singing the song, this whole conversation about unity and how it's going to require all of us. And Mark, what you're doing through TPF with bringing folks together to line up their hearts and their monies. And Dr. Halima, what you're doing, it all matters, y'all. And I thank you so much for sharing your light with us today. Y'all work, we see y'all, we see us. And I hope that we all will move forward. We all can move forward when we back Black, right? So let's all lean into the spirit and the theme of Black Philanthropy Month, not just today, but 365. And that is a theme, by the way. Black Philanthropy Month 365 is a whole hashtag. I know Dr. Copeland would like for me to say that. Hashtag BPM365. That means that beyond this month, we should be about that life every single day. And so with that, panelists, if y'all don't have any, or if you have any lasting words to say to the people, please share how folks can find you or any other sentiments. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it on up, y'all. Go ahead, Dr. Starita.
Our Black History newsletter is free.
Okay.
10,000 Black History artifacts. Go to the website, thenew3rs.org, and hit subscribe. And you will learn the great things that Black people have been given the world.
Love that. I'm going to subscribe. I'm already subscribed. Mark, Dr. Halima?
That you can find Transforming Power Fund on all social media platforms at Transforming Power Fund. Of course, our website is transformingpowerfund.org. I wouldn't be doing my job if I say we need funding to re-grant that money out. And so, in the spirit of Black philanthropy, shoot us a few dollars, donate directly to the website. And that money doesn't go in my pockets, of course. It goes directly back into the hands of community organizers building systemic change in Detroit. So thank you.
Yes, and I welcome you to, if you want to learn more about the Tulane School of Professional Advancement John Lewis Public Administration Program, you can visit our website. It's SOPA, that's SOPA.tulane.edu/Lewis. You can also visit us on LinkedIn. So search us on LinkedIn. We are under John Lewis Public Administration Program. And if you're interested in earning a Master of Public Administration degree or certificate in an area such as economic development, environmental management, nonprofit or strategic philanthropy leadership, you can feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk to you about it. My email is halima@tulane.edu. That's HALIMA @tulane.edu.
I love y'all. Thank you so much for being here and being in this space today, y'all. I hope that all the audience, you all are inspired by today's conversation and will join us again next month. Every month we do this live conversation, collective conversation. Next month will be centered on give to Women and Girls Day. So we're going to talk about the reason why we need to better support women and girls, because only 2% of funding goes. But that's a whole nother subject. Let me get off this live where my producers kick me off. Thank y'all so much for being here. God bless all of the panelists and all of you out there. Just take good care of yourself today. Take it easy and love on one another. We will see you next time.